You are what I'm looking for. I know what I'm looking for.
In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you this really cool template that I have for a letter size Jen-Velope template. This creates a large envelope sized 8.5 by 11 inches, and it will fit perfectly inside of a binder. This is also the template that I use to create the envelopes that are stored inside of my Jen-Velope template books. I've had many questions in the past on this size and how to create this envelope, so we're going to do that today. I've got a 12 by 12 paper pad, of course, one of the many millions that I have, and I'm going to flip through and pull out some patterns that I want to create an envelope. Now you're going to need 2 pieces of 12 by 12 paper. You can use coordinating papers or you can use 2 of the same. For today's video, I'm going to use 2 of the same pattern. And I'm going to show you how this works. Step 1, we're going to take one of these pieces of paper and cut it down to 12 by 10 inches. Now I want to keep in mind the part that I want to keep on my envelope. So I'm going to cut away the sort of pink gradient at the top, and I'm going to keep that little piece off to the side because we're going to use that. I'm going to actually grab a circle punch and punch out a couple of circles, but we're going to come back later on and use a little bit more out of this piece. So for now, I'm just punching out these 2 circles. I'll set them aside and then move on to the next steps. So we have one piece that measures 12 by 12 and one piece that measures 12 by 10. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard and I'm going to take that smaller piece, and across the 10-inch side, I'm going to make my first score at 2 inches. Now I'm keeping in mind that the pattern that I want to show on the envelope is towards the right. So you're going to see this. It is going to be upside down, but you'll see how it comes along in the end. I'll turn this one turn to the right, and then I'll score that at 1/2 inch and at 1 inch. And that's going to be it for the scoreboard for this piece of paper. The next thing I'm going to do is cut away this little top corner here. I'm just going to crease the folds on the side here first, and then it will really sort of outline that little piece that I need to cut away. So I'm going to cut across the score mark here. I'm going to grab some fine scissors. I think it's better with a precision tip. So I'm just going to follow that score line into the second mark and then come in on that second line and cut down. Okay, so we have this little gusset here. And what I also like to do is just trim away these corners. I like to cut sort of like a 45-degree angle. It just helps everything fold together nicely, and then you don't have anything sort of in the way. So I'm just going to angle cut these. You won't even see this when the envelope is adhered together. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that that's all folded and works good. And then I'm going to crease this top fold here and then burnish these with my bone folder. This little side flap is where we're going to apply adhesive, and then that big pink strip we're going to apply adhesive, and then this floral pattern will be the front of the envelope. Okay, so I'll set that aside and then I'll pull in the larger piece, and keeping in mind that the top part of my envelope closure, where I make my first score, this is what you're going to see on the front of the envelope. So I'm going to go ahead and score that at 3.5 inches, and then I'm going to rotate this paper one turn to the left. So the first piece we rotated one turn to the right, and now the second piece we're going to rotate one turn to the left. Now the reason for that is because each side of this cardstock is going to have a gusset. So in order for the envelope to match up, and then getting a gusset on both sides and also keeping that envelope at 11 inches, we need to score the gusset on each page. Okay, so I'm going to pop it back in my trimmer here, and then I'm going to turn it one turn to the left. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and make my scores at 1/2 inch and 1 inch. I hope that makes sense. I suppose if you're going to make this envelope, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about if you end up making it wrong the first time, and you'll end up with 2 gussets on the same side of the paper. So we're going to go ahead and trim away the same corners that we had on the first piece and just folding those score lines so that you can really see the outline of where we need to cut away. And don't worry if you don't get this super straight, we can always come back and trim off any excess later on. I'm going to go ahead and make those same angled cuts into those little flaps there, right up to that second score line. And then I'll go ahead and crease all of the folds. So using my bone folder here, and I'm also taking my time to make sure that I get my scores lined up nice and straight and really burnishing them in so that everything is nice and sharp. Okay, so I've got that little gusset all folded, and now I'm going to fold down my top flap. Now you can see this piece is going to be the part that closes our envelope. And this little side piece is where we're going to apply adhesive. And then again, we're going to apply adhesive on this little gusset and that large pink strip. So I'm just going to grab some double-sided tape. You can use whatever you've got. You can use glue or dot liner like I'm using, or you can use rolls of double-sided sticky tape, whatever works best for you. So I'm just applying my adhesive all over. I want to make sure I get right to the edge because I don't want anything to catch on the sides of my envelope when I put everything together. Okay, so I'm applying adhesive on this little strip here, and then I'm going to attach these two pieces together. I like to use my scoreboard for this, and I pop in that smaller piece first and kind of push it into the corner. And then I flip over my other page and use the corners of my scoreboard to help line everything up, making sure that it's nice and straight. And then I'll just take my time and adhere one piece at a time. Okay, and then here we go. Our envelope is formed. Now it's starting to look like an envelope. And now you'll see that I've got this weird little piece sticking out over here. So I like to just go ahead, take my scissors and cut this piece away. So I'm just going to grab my little sharp scissors and just take my time and trim that away, and then you'll never know that anything kind of was weird and not where it was supposed to be. All right, so I'm just going to crease all of the folds here. That is perfect, looks good. And all the gussets are sealed, and now we have a little bit of space in that folder so that we can put our stuff. There is a little bit of extra hanging over. It wasn't perfectly straight when I was cutting, so I'll just take my little sharp scissors here and just trim that away. And now our envelope is perfect. When I folded the flap down, I felt like there wasn't enough of a definition. So I grabbed that little scrap piece of pink paper that I had earlier, and I'm just going to apply adhesive to a little strip of that paper and apply it to the bottom part of this envelope. I think it will help to separate those two busy patterns and identify sort of the lip of this envelope. So I'm just applying adhesive, and I'll line that up right on the bottom of my flap. And now you can really see how easily identifiable that is. So I'll just grab my scissors and cut away any of the excess that's hanging off the sides here. And now the next thing we need to work on is the closure. I'm going to go back to those little circles, and I've got two circles punched out here. I'm going to apply adhesive and attach them together. So I'm just going to make sure that I get this covered with my adhesive and then stack the two pieces on top of each other. Now you could just glue this down, but I wanted to take this up a little notch. So I've got this little piece of foam here, and I'm going to poke a hole and add a brad. So to do this, I'm just going to take my little piece of foam and I'm going to insert it inside of my envelope, kind of eyeballing the center. And then I'm going to close the flap down, and then I'm going to pop my little circle on. So basically, this envelope is going to tuck closed. So my idea here is to line it up onto the envelope and poke the hole through the circles and into the envelope. Now I didn't get it perfectly centered. Later on, I went back and poked a new hole, but we're just going to keep going. I'm not going to bore you with that. So I'm just going to attach this here. I'm going to grab one of these little tiny metal brads that I have, and I'm going to put the brad through the little circle and then through the hole that I've poked in the paper. Now, just make sure that you're being careful here, that you don't poke through the circle, through the paper, through the foam, and back through the other side. So I was careful. I didn't do that. Once I felt it pierce the paper, I stopped. I'm going to attach the brad and then spread those little arms there. And now we have a perfect little tuck closure. And our little circle is really adhered on there, but there's room to tuck in the little flap of that envelope. And then just for safety measure here, to make sure that nobody gets cut or it doesn't catch on my paper, I'm going to grab that little scrap of pink and punch out another circle. I'll apply adhesive all over the back of that whole circle, and then I'm going to press this down over top of the brad. Then this way nothing is poking out and I don't have to worry about it. It's sealed up in behind that circle and we're good to go. So you can't really see what I'm doing here, so I'll show you once it's adhered what I've done. And I've just got it on the inside there, protecting those little brad closures. And then I'll tuck the flap in and everything is closing together beautifully. So the next thing I want to do is just round the corners. I think rounding the corners gives it a really elegant touch and a finishing look, basically. It just softens it up and then you know it's complete. So I liked the way that looked. I just did a 1/4 inch round and I'm going to do that to all 4 corners. I'll use my corner punch here and punch out all 4 corners. And then I really love the way this is coming along. This is so beautiful. Now, when no one was looking, I fixed it. I moved the little brad into another hole that I poked. And I'm going to grab a 3-hole punch. You don't have to do this step if you don't want to, but I thought this would be a great little project to put inside of a binder. Like if you had ephemera to store or paper or notes or things, you could fill a binder with these little pockets and punch holes in them, and then it'll be lovely. It'll be a great place to store stuff. So I have another smaller circle punch and I'm going to create reinforcements for those holes. So I punched out 3 little holes and adhered it over top of the binder ring holes. And then I had another punch and I was going to punch out the circle, but it was a bit too big. So I grabbed another hole punch and just lined it up so I could see where my holes were and punched through those little hole reinforcers. And there we go. Look at that. This envelope is complete. We've got a gusseted pocket with lots of room. You can come in and punch a little thumb notch like I'm going to do here. And our envelope is complete and ready to be filled with all of our lovely things. This is a great project to use up some of those large 12 by 12 papers that are designed for scrapbook pages and that you're really not sure what to do with. Here is a close-up look at our finished envelope. I had so much fun creating these. This is actually my mother's favorite project. She creates all of my envelopes that we add inside each of my Jen-Velope Template Reference Books. They are handmade envelopes that you can fill with your projects and store them away for future use. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate the support as always. Coming up on screen is a playlist of Chop It Up videos. I have 70 plus videos on my YouTube channel sharing tons of ways to use your pattern papers. I hope that you'll check some of those out. Thanks so much for joining me today. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!